Welcome back to Math Time with Professor Prime, and I'm your host as always, Professor Prime. So let's talk about King's Tale, Final Fantasy 15. So here's how this video is going to go. I am going to give a little background first, and then focus in on the combat for King's Tale, Final Fantasy 15. I'm going to talk about the math of it all, and just kind of go from there. Talking about some meta elements as well, and talking about my feelings on the game. Uh, Spoilers ahead. I say that because there's not much there story wise, but the premise, um, which is going to be worth talking about to me, that's the whole story at the same time in a way. So spoilers ahead. Let's get into it. So when it comes to Final Fantasy 15, it is like Final Fantasy 7 and the regards of it having a whole bunch of moving parts associated with it. Like it has movies and other games and just other pieces of media associated with it. Like which is kind of insane when you think about it. And A King's Tale, Final Fantasy 15, is a part of that whole thing. So the basic premise is Noctis's father is telling him bedtime stories, which may or may not be true. When it's kind of hinted that some things were embellished, but like given what we see in Final Fantasy 15, I don't think you'd have to embellish much. So anyway, we're gonna start by talking about the combat and going from there. So the basic premise of the combat is you dish out damage while you try to avoid taking it, right? Or if you have to take it, recovering from it. That's the main parts of it, and it kind of expands from there. So when you're thinking about character, right, you're playing is Reggie or Regis, Noctis's father, right? In the context of like the framework of their story. Um, so you're fighting different opponents. You're dishing out damage, or you're trying to dish out damage while trying to avoid taking it, right? Or trying to evade it, or trying to recover from it. That's the big idea. You're trying to stay at 100%, or at least not reach 0% at a minimum, right? While trying to make sure that your opponents do get to 0%. So throughout your battles, you can see your health. You have your HP and you have your MP, and you can see your health and you can see the health of your opponents. And so you could do your thing while whittling down their health. And so you have several attacks that will aid you in it. So it's got that, like I said, basic idea, dishing out damage while trying to avoid taking it, and then it kind of expands from there. So for your attacks, right, you have a quick attack, where it's not going to do as much damage as a heavy attack, but you can get more strikes in if you're quick enough, right? So you have your quick attack, you have a stronger attack, which is going to be slower, but it's really not that slow. But anyway, you can alternate between those. You also have the idea of a shield bash. And then you have the idea of a roll dodge, which allows you to evade, and then it allows you to get behind your opponents. So you have the idea that these are your attack options plus, and these are because that was your melee options, right? But you have that plus your magic options, and with their magic, they keep it pretty simple here. You have your fire magic, your lightning magic, and your ice magic, and so you can use those as you navigate that whole thing, right? There's a better way to say that. So as you navigate the levels, right? And as you navigate said levels, you will be hit with several enemies. And as you go on throughout that story mode, you're going to get an increasing amount of an increasing amount of enemies, right? The numbers are crazy for it, right? Like, and you have to be quick and you have to be able to recover. But so I mentioned that you have your melee attacks, you have your magic attacks, but you also have like different combinations of attacks because you have so alongside with Reggie, you have Wesker, you have Sid, and you have Claris, and each of those can do their own thing if you build up your combo meter. And if you build up your combo meter to the max, you can also end up doing like a combination attack between all of them, which can dish out damage across the field. Like, hey, so and so is doing their attack here, and then there, and then here, and then you kind of do like a finisher. And there's some variance in that, but the idea is, right, you can dish out a lot of damage if you're careful. So you start off with your basic attacks, you end up learning magic, you end up having combination attacks with the people that are along for the journey, and you can all attack at the same time. if you're filling up enough combos. Keep in mind, your combo gauge can drop if you get hit, right? So you are trying to dish out damage while trying to not take it, and build up your combo meter and dish out a lot of damage. And you're doing this to navigate through the levels, right? You're doing this to navigate through the story. And as you're navigating through the story, like overall, you're actually navigating the story within universe because Reggie is telling Noctis the story, right? And so that's the big part of it, right? So you have a basic idea, dishing out attacks, dishing out damage while trying to not take it. And then it's like, hey, so how do we monitor that? Right? You have your HP, you have your MP, and you're practicing resource management, and you're attacking, and you're dodging, and you're building your combo meter, and you're dishing out more damage, and you're using magic. You can use the magic in general to dish out damage in a wide range of area. You can hold down the magic button to like charge things up. Like you have fire, and then firer, then firaga. You know, basically that three layers of fire, right? And the same thing for thunder, and same thing for ice, right? Um, yeah. So you have those options, and there are a few enemies that respond specifically to different elements. Like you may have one where it's like, oh well, fire isn't gonna work on them so well, but it'll work on the others, and the same for like the thunder, and the same for ice. So you have to pay attention to what's going on the screen with that, and like you can tell who's gonna be immune to what item. I'm sorry, what type of magic based on their color. So like if like the gel. God, why am I blanking on the name right now? But like the kind of like gel like enemy, like if that enemy is like red, they're immune to fire. If they're blue, they're immune to ice. If they're yellow, they're immune to thunder, right? So but that's the idea. So you had a basic concept, and then it begins to expand, and it ends up getting fast paced because not only do you have enemies that like only respond to um, certain elements, or like they're immune to certain elements, but you have ones where you have to be careful how you attack them, right? Like there's like a sort of samurai that goes through the level where it's like, hey, you can only you can hit them with magic and stuff like that, but as far as your melee attacks go, it's like, oh well, if you do your quick slash, that's gonna work, right? Or there's some other ones where it's like, well, only your heavy strikes will work, right? And then there's some where it's just like, hey, your quick slash will be effective here, and you have to like really spam that thing while you're dishing out things, and before you know it, right, you have tons of enemies just on the screen that you're gonna have to take out. So it's like, hey, you're gonna have to take out this one, you're gonna have to take out that one, and you're gonna have to modify your strategy, and then go for this one. You have different combinations you can perform throughout the game, where it's like you might have like three consecutive strikes, like square, 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 or triangle, triangle, triangle. So like something like three of the quick slashes, or three of heavy strikes. So you have like attacks like that, and the same for the shield bass. Or you might have different combinations where you have square, square, triangle, or like quick, heavy, like for your strikes, and then that'll like allow you to hit a launching technique, and that allows you to perform aerial combos. So that's an option too. So it's like, oh well, you can take your opponents off the ground, and there's math in everything that I said, right? And I dig it. I dig it hard because it's like, hey, there's math in that idea of dishing out damage while trying to avoid taking it. There's math in you attacking, and you evading, and you countering, right? Saying, hey, let me deflect this, let me deflect that, let me move around the arena, taking out this opponent and that opponent. And there's a lot of speed to it, so you got to be good, you got to react. And so there's not only math and everything that you're seeing in the screens, from like the idea of the combat to the colors and the light and the sound and the music, but there's also math in you, the player, and like your reaction time, and you pressing like down this button a certain amount of times, or this button a certain amount of times, and then like you managing your health, managing your MP, using the items that pop up on screen to recover your HP and your MP. And you're paying attention to this enemy, that enemy, and you're looking at their design, you're looking at their colors, and you're figuring out what you do as you go along. And that's a beautiful thing to me, because it's like, right, there's math in these characters and how they're designed, their scale, their scope, how you stack up to them, how they look. You wouldn't think it, but that is all math. And so it's like, hey, you're using math to determine like which enemy is what and what you're going to do, right? And I think that's cool. I think that's slick. And this is a very fast game, and so it's just like so cool because there's math in the motion, math in the speed, math in your reactions, but just going all around. And then there's the idea like after the story mode, there are dream battles, and with those dream battles, you have different challenges, and you get scored on those challenges. So it's like, well, you get scored based off of the damage that you're putting out, right? But some of those points can be subtracted if you take out damage, right? Like, or rather, like damage is subtracted from your score. But also, like, the types of attacks that you're doing, like you might do 11 types of attack throughout whatever the challenge is, and that affects your score. Actually getting through affects your score. You can't really get a score without getting through that. But also, you might have certain objectives. Like, you might have a case like, oh, well, maybe I need to use this character in their combo like 3 times, right? Or like, hey, maybe I can't use magic this time in order to achieve the objective. And so all these things add up to your scores, and so you can go through those different challenges, and you get more bang for your buck. And all of that is math. And of course, there's math and money, right? Money money used to produce the game, to market it, and money that you spent as the player. And in this case, what's really cool is at this point in time, like back, so I bought it recently, right? And when I got that, back when I got it like the other day, it was free. It wasn't free when it came out, but it's free now, and so that's cool. Like I got it on the PlayStation Store, so that is awesome. But it's like whenever you buy a game, it's like, hey, is this gonna be worth it, right? Like, am I gonna get like this incredible experience? Am I gonna get enough hours? And you're putting your time in, so it's like, well, am I gonna get something that will be, worthwhile to me time wise? Like, do I feel like I enjoyed this experience? That sort of thing. So you have to be careful with those sort of things. Here, it's like I got it for free. I was willing to take a risk, and it's been stellar. I wish it was actually talked about more. Okay, so with that being said, we have a King's Tale Final Fantasy 15. It is a stellar 2D beat 'em up Final Fantasy 15 game, and I think it's underrated. It should be talked about more. So there you have it. I'll see you in the next one. Professor Prime out.